Hey everybody, and welcome to another model building workshop. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. Today we're going to do a sneak peek at some new model kits. So jumping right in, we're going to look at the brand new ICM Models FCM 36 French light tank. Like I said, this is just brand new from ICM, which is out of the Ukraine. And there's a lot of great model companies coming out of or have been coming out of the Ukraine for a number of years now. So this is a French light tank that was used in World War II. It's invented in the 1930s, and it was a pretty interesting and revolutionary design here in that it had a diesel engine. So it had really good range for a tank at the time. And it's got welded armor. I believe FCM was a shipbuilding company. Not completely sure, but I believe so. So this is a very futuristic looking, to me it's a very futuristic looking tank, and I think it's one of the most fascinating looking vehicles of that period. And it's one of those things I don't know about you, but I could almost picture this thing being in Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica or something. It's got a very, futuristic look. Maybe with a different paint job, but anyway, I can envision that. Maybe you can't, but that's where my mind's going. So let's just look at what's in the box, right? And it's a very sturdy box. I'm going to start with the instruction sheet. Most people should. They don't always. But so let's take a look. Nice, well-printed, glossy paper, some nice color. So it's got the paint guide here, and it has reference numbers for Revell and Tamiya paints. Of course, it shows you the colors or the equivalents. Brief history, very, very brief history. Let's take a look. So it has a parts diagram page here. And assembly doesn't seem to be too bad from first look. Give you some ideas there. It is French, it is going to have a lot of wheels to it. Although I've seen tanks with far worse numbers of wheels than this. It's not too bad. It's got a lot of interesting angled armor plates. It gives color references to painting the interior, but it doesn't give you an interior. I'm assuming some company will probably put together things to do an interior on this down the road. Usually some aftermarket company will come up with some kind of an improvement kit or something for this. Okay, so it mentions it's like rubber band style tracks. I'm assuming they glue together. It's kind of vague there. I'll have to find out when I try to assemble this. It's got the engine grills there. That was always a weak spot in the French tanks, that they tended to have the engine grill on the side. And once the Germans figured that out, they knew where to aim. It would cripple the tank. All right, tools. It does have an option for the driver's hatch to be open or closed. So if you want to put a crew member inside, you could do that. Have the visor open there and see him inside. This kit does not come with one, but they do make a kit for this with some crew, which I'll show you in a moment. So it has a machine gun, which is nicely detailed, although the cannon itself is just two pieces that go together. That's a little soft, shall we say, but we'll see how it looks when it's built. And it has this really odd futuristic turret, which I think is fascinating. You have an option for the back door of the turret hatch to be open or closed. And as I mentioned, there is a figure set for this, so if you did leave the back hatch open, you can put a figure there. Although there's also other manufacturers that make French tank crews. There's a lot of possibilities with that. Another thing that's interesting, and I'll show you in the pieces when we get there in a second, is it talks about this chain, this method for building a chain. These are plastic pieces that pop together to create chain links. And it shows you a diagram how to assemble them to the front and the back. And then you've got your painting guide. It says one version here. Both are from May of 1940. Although this one, no, sorry, this is from June 1940. May and June 1940, from different aspects of the battle. So interesting camouflage schemes with the playing card symbols on them. So there's a look at the instructions. And I did look, if you're not happy with these decals, or if you want to do a bunch of these and do different variants, I believe it's Blitz Kits out of France sells a decal sheet with more options. So there are other options for these, if you want. So let's have a look at some of the plastic, shall we? All right, so here's this tree here. So you get the whole top, just pretty much one solid piece, just for the hatches and the engine grills. Got some of the side armor plates and turret parts. The turret's pretty much this piece here. So, and you get two trees of suspension and tools, all different wheels, hatches, etc. there. Like I said, two of those. And then you get the whole bottom parts here. So that's pretty much what you've got. So there's not a very large parts count. There's the cannon there. Doesn't look like it's a very large part count for this. Probably not going to be too bad, but we'll see. I hope to build this in an upcoming episode, and we'll take a look at how this thing goes. So it should be fun. Now, I mentioned there was a crew. So ICM also makes the World War II French tank crew. And as I mentioned, other manufacturers also have French tank crew figures out there, so there are a few options. This one's an interesting scene. It's a diorama in itself, because you've got the French tank crew, you have the crewman that's sitting in the tank. Interesting how they make the tank like a ghost with this man floating in the air. But you get the idea that he fits in the turret of the tank, and you've got these two kids that are having a look at it. You got an officer and another crewman here. Although at first glance I thought this was like a civilian, like the kid's father, but it turns out this is a crewman as well. So let's have a look inside this kit. And ICM makes some really nice figure sets. And they did a really great job recently celebrating the 100th anniversary of World War I by releasing many different figure sets for that time period. You know, pretty much all the combatants. They're still releasing things to that now. So let's have a peek. Again, fairly solid boxes. So you get a bag with lots of small parts there. You can see the holsters for the pistols are there. Little arms and legs for for everybody. You get the idea. Give you a parts breakdown. Again, the color callouts here, and again, Revell and Tamiya paints. I don't see Revell paints around here that much, but Tamiya certainly is readily available. And here's your painting guide, an assembly guide for the crew and the kids. I'm sure you can get creative with the colors on the kids, but anyway. This is something new I've noticed, which I thought was interesting. So if your dog ate your model, there's an option to get replacement pieces. So I thought that was kind of cool, because I haven't had to dog eat the pieces, but I've certainly damaged things and had to go track them down, and can be a pain, but getting easier now to fix things. So that's the figure set. So I bought these separately, but by the looks of things now, it's stuck to the, anyway, you can buy it as an all-in-one kit. Granted, it's got a bit of a high price tag, but you get the figures and the tank in one. I haven't seen this actually, out yet, but here it is. So you can probably order one. Pull that off. And it's in the bag here, as I mentioned earlier. Let's take a look at the chain links. If you look closely, you see there's a little cutout part on the top, so these can kind of snap together and make an extended chain. There's two of these, front and rear towing chains. And here's the tread pieces. They seem flexible. I'm not sure how that's going to work. It implies that they glue together. Find out. On the plus side, because this has got such a heavy overhang of armor plating, there's not a whole lot of the track you're going to see, really. So if these don't cooperate that well, I mean, there are some options to get around some of that. And I'm sure that they're going to be having separate track length options, which I think they probably already have that, because there were a few of these kits around. Let me backtrack a bit. So there are other models of the FCM 36, but they're in resin. They're not injection molded plastic like this. They're not this kind of a kit. So resin is a really solid, brittle form of like a plastic that you have to put together with super glue. It's really tricky to work with, to say the least. I think I will try to demonstrate some of that in upcoming episodes to get the idea of what it's like to work with a resin kit and super glue. They make some really interesting and oddball subject matter in resin, which I could see why this tank would have been, because this is an oddball tank. It's a weird French light tank. Not many of these, about 100 of these I think were built, and they were used in the opening phase of the war with France and Germany. So I'm surprised to see this as a mass-produced injection molded model kit, because it is such a odd topic. But there has been an interest in French armor recently, which I'm glad for, because I think French armor is interesting, very intriguing. Yeah, so these showed up in battle. Let me put it this way. So when the Germans invaded France, they didn't invade in the direction that the French were expecting them to. So the Germans launched the main thrust of their attack through the Ardennes forest region, which the French thought was going to be too difficult to move large armored formations through. So in that sector of the front, they stationed like reserve units and these tanks, which are really infantry support tanks. They're not meant for tank versus tank combat. So these were guarding that sector because they figured it was not going to be the main battle sector. So when the Germans suddenly appeared and began to mass through that area, they rushed what they had, and this is what was there. So these ran out to try to meet that German attack, and it was a rough battle for the French. There is an episode of Great Tank Battles, which was on a History Channel, military History Channel, one of those cable channels back a ways, and they did interview a crewman from one of these tanks who met that German attack. And he said that he closed in range and he fired his short 37mm cannon that were on these, and he watched in horror as the shells bounced off the Panzer III that was coming at him. And he fired and fired and did not have much success. Eventually his tank got hit and he had to bail. But yeah, they put up a valiant attempt, but this, again, was not meant to clash with heavier tanks. So, had a brief history in that, that battle. Some survived into the end of the French campaign and continued fighting, and a number of these were captured. Some were later converted into like tractors and self-propelled guns. They would simply take the turret off and mount a heavier field cannon on top. So, also, if you're looking for more information on this tank, Track Story is a series of books that are in French and English. And this one is on the FCM 36. So there's a whole series of these on a number of different French tanks, like this one's number 7, for example. And this explains the development, the history, and some color profiles of these tanks. And if you notice, this is the tank here. It's this one here. So they use that marking option is on included with that kit. So I'll give you a quick look at some of this. If you're really interested in French tanks, these are nice to have, but it's really not necessary, but they're kind of fun. Being a tank nerd like I am, especially of oddball subjects like the French, and I like the Italian and Japanese tanks as well. So I track these kind of things down. And then in the back are the color profiles. So as I said, I think it's Blitz Kit that makes some of these other decal options if you're interested in doing more with that kit. So that's our quick look at that new FCM 36, and hopefully in upcoming episodes we'll work on this and I'll show you how the assembly goes. So stay tuned for more fun on the Province Community Library YouTube page, and stay tuned for more fun in the Model Building Workshop. We'll do some more kit reviews like this and some other assembly tips as we go. So stay tuned, and hope to see you guys real soon. All right, take it easy. Bye now.